King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Yours truly, the King of Podcasts, has reached another pinnacle. To quote the new Faccion AEW, I have reached another landmark. Take it easy. Nobody's going to get shot. Nobody's going to get hurt. To quote a TikToker. I have reached episode 600 tonight of the Wrestling is Real podcast, right here at WrestlingIsReal.com. And for all of you, the fact that I got to this point, again, 600 episodes flew by. All right, I don't pat myself on the back, and I don't make a point of really talking about, the glory of this show, only on these certain times. But again, 600 episodes, and that's in what? 8.5 years time. Started this December 2012. December 18th of 2012. And here I am. I've sat at this same chair right here for the most part, except for a couple episodes. And, it, again, even though WWE has been in a better place than it was. I mean, when I think about the WrestleManias I got to go and cover up to now, I think the first one was 29, or was it 29? And that was the one in Miami. And I believe that was, or no, it was the year after that. I forget. Either which way. Yeah, it was 29. And since then, remember we had Daniel Bryan and Sheamus, and AJ was in the corner. And I forget all the other matches we had that year that just encompass where things were when I started this show. Just to go back on the match card of that. Oh, that's right. It was, it was 28. It was 28. Hold on. No, I wouldn't have done it by then. That would have been Rock and Cena. No, I would have been 29. That's what it was. So it was New York when they went to MetLife Stadium. And that was Rock and Cena too. That's when I came around. And look at the level of the matches we had only 8 years ago. When I was doing this program, when I first started off, roughly 600 episodes ago. Look at the level of matches we had then. Miz and Wade Barrett, that was the IC title match. Shield, right? Shield was big deal, and that was with Big Show, Randy Orton, and Sheamus in a 6-man tag. Then it was Mark Henry and Ryback. Team Hell No, Daniel Bryan and Kane versus Biggie Langston and Dolph Ziggler. Fandango and Chris Jericho. Remember when Fandango won? Alberto Del Rio versus Jack Swagger. Undertaker versus CM Punk. What a big match. Triple H versus Brock Lesnar. Right? And John Cena and The Rock. That's a hell of a pay-per-view. That was a hell of a night. And look at where we are now. When you look at everything. Look at where we have subjected ourselves to now in terms of the quality of WrestleMania this year. Now, again, take note of the COVID-19 pandemic. Take note of the lack of crowds. Take note of the changes that have gone on with what they have to do. And I have to ask myself the question, too. Of all the things that are going on within the company, I got to ask myself, how much of it has to do with the fact that we've had all this corporate influence, not just within the company, but I'm sure with all the millions of dollars that are being spent out in broadcast dollars, and I think nobody talks about this, how much influence do NBC Universal and Fox have over which stars are noted that are featured on their programming? Because I feel like what's happening as well, and believe it or not, is that the marketable stars, because of what the company's done previously, that's why the stars we're seeing right now are the ones we're seeing. And that the company's been incapable of building new stars and also building baby faces, which has been very clear for a long time. I mean, have we had any one star, since John Cena, that has been the consummate babyface, that has been the ire of everyone out there, right? We don't have that. The stars that we had that were long-term baby faces, they turned heel. Bayley and Roman Reigns, right? And who else? We we've had a lot of stars that have had to go heel to babyface, sure, but we've never had the long-term baby faces. Like it's an anomaly. You just can't find it. And the work they have to go and do to try to build a babyface that is strong, doesn't look stupid in the ring, among everything else, that doesn't have a touch of gray, that's tough. But we don't have that in this company, and that's one of the easiest things that can be pointed out as what the problem is with creative and with everything that's going on with trying to build up this WrestleMania this year. I mean, think about it. It's not been easy. I mean, we do have quite a few matches where we do have some definite faces versus heels, right? I guess the one team that has absolutely been they were heels before. New Day weren't they heels originally, I guess, before they became faces? And the same way, but they've been long-term faces. And you got to ask yourself, who of the stars do you have that are planted right now that are absolute baby faces and have been established? Drew McIntyre, yeah, he's been established now. He's a baby face. No doubt about it. But among everybody else that you have wrestling at WrestleMania, of the 8 matches we now have announced, of which we know 6 of the matches of which nights they're going to be on, and the other 2 are unconfirmed, that's what we have. And then the level of star power that this show has compared to what I just told you. I mean, granted, when I just told you that card, you had Undertaker and Triple H, 2 mainstays of the Attitude Era that were still wrestling actively. In part-time mode, by the way. CM Punk and John Cena and The Rock. Part-timer in The Rock. And, again, John Cena, full-time, was the mainstay. And he was, he's been the guy that was carrying this company. And a lot of times, we hated it. Right? But as we all know, we got to respect the man. And look at what he's doing now. John Cena is doing everything. Experience commercials, wants to go out, put out the new episode of a new series of Wipeout. He's doing movies. He's doing everything. He's just everywhere. He's getting all the work. That guy is so busy in Hollywood. Damn, Rock. I see him. I just went yesterday. I was doing some walking around a plaza in a strip mall. I passed by Dick's Sporting Goods, and he's got his own line of athletic wear. I passed by GMC, got his own own line of vitamins and supplements. Shit, what does The Rock not have his hand into? Vodka, he's got that now. TV shows, he's got that. He's got his own show, right? Young Rock, got the movies. I mean, what else does this guy do? He's got everything. Busy upon busy. That's where it comes down to. Then, we don't have anybody else. And we have some stars that are just kind of left in the limelight. But again, this is the whittling down of what WWE brought themselves to. And thus, the title tonight, WWE walks the plank while creative has gone overboard. What has not helped either is that the creative, behind all these storylines, because of the fact of the building of proper baby faces versus heels versus in between, the gray matter in the middle, with all that right there, it's just the basics of trying to get a wrestler to be a babyface or a heel, and then trying to build the dimensions and layers of a character to make them somebody that matters, right? And then you have one of the easiest things that you could do for creative. When nothing else works, when you don't have any other part-timers to work off of, and you can't make anything work among the younger stars that you have, right? Or even build storylines in between during the off-season to get them somewhere. Well, what does WWE normally do? They will go back to something that already has a story, right? The story tells itself. You've heard this story. You've heard how many times have there been stories that, again, because of the stars, because of some of the mistakes they've done, because of some of these stops and starts of feuds, or things that have happened in feuds that they never went back to because they never decided to do any continuity, there are always times where The story tells itself. Now, what I mean by that? Look at your main event. The story tells itself. Now, as I begin, you already know which match I'm talking about. I am talking about Roman Reigns versus Edge versus Daniel Bryan. Now, we already know that with Daniel Bryan, 2014 Royal Rumble, he got screwed out of that match. Roman Reigns won, and The Rock had to prop up Roman Reigns after that. At the worst possible... Remember, it was a time that Roman Reigns was getting jeered, and the next night, remember the boos that came out of that crowd? Right? Roman Reigns being thrown down our throats. Daniel Bryan doing what he did to get to the level to go ahead and overcome to become, what was it, WWE champion, right? Or World Heavyweight champion, I forget. But that's what happened. It was the lead up to that. And then we get to the point where you could go back to that. You could go back to that story because there was never a resolution about that. And now you have the point where Daniel Bryan is the babyface. For whatever reason, you brought back into the mix because you can't get Edge and Roman Reigns. You don't want to give that match. Because there's not enough heat behind that match. For Edge to go and just come in, the believability of Edge being able to beat Roman Reigns. So creating a triple threat makes more sense. And just again, you're adding Daniel Bryan to the mix. But again, for what? I mean, I heard Brian Alvarez on Wrestling Observer. He's about the only Wrestling Observer is about the only thing I even listened to at all of the clips they put up on YouTube. That's about the only people I listen to at all talking about wrestling, and some of the people I listen to on TikTok. But that's about it. I don't listen to the other podcasters. I haven't. Yeah, it's been a while, and it's not against the other podcasters. It's just I'm tired of the criticism. I'm tired of the bash, and again, and they always want to bash other podcasters because they're saying, oh well, there's nobody wants to give any criticism or any kind of critique or any kind of positive, constructive criticism. And again, the other thing I don't want to be, which is what some of the other podcasters are out there. And listen, I love you guys. I'm staying in my lane. I don't bother you guys anymore. I don't even say anything about you anymore. You know why? And it's not anything wrong with that. But there are many people out there. They will defend to the T WWE. They will be loyal to that brand. They will call it the Major League. They will stick to them. And they will go ahead and just, they will try to justify and make good. And again, they're the ones that allowed the crap on WWE, right? They're the ones, because they're the ones that sat through Attitude Era and Rock and Wrestling and all the other things. Well, so did I. Except I diversify my entertainment of wrestling. And it's not because I'm from the South. It's not because I'm from the fact I was in Florida. Listen, I can watch USA Network since 1983 on my cable. I watched Primetime Wrestling. I watched Raw from the beginning all the way up to today, except for the short amount of time that I didn't. Now, I do want to talk about this here. I have to talk about the time where I did stop watching wrestling for about 3-4 years. And that anniversary as to when I took a break from wrestling altogether, it was a sad time for me as a wrestling fan. March the 26th of the year 2001. We all remember that day. Now, has anybody actually talked about the end of WCW? Right? Has anybody talked about that this week? It is the 20th anniversary. This week. We're here. And I'm surprised that I'm not seeing anything about it. The night when Raw invaded Nitro. And it's funny, nobody's talking about it. Here's one story that I found about it. What culture? And I got to talk about this now because this, as a wrestling fan, bothered me. And I'll tell you, this was the last time that WWE actually had a chip on the shoulder, and they were competitive. And they have lived off the legacy of the Attitude Era on the Monday Night Wars, which ended on, it will be this Saturday, coming up. It will be the 20th anniversary of the day WCW Nitro died. Yep. So, yeah, it's not the date yet, but again, this is the week, and this is the show that comes on and talks about it. So I'm going to take the story from What Culture. Michael Hamflett, thank you for writing this story, because it's very important. And this is indicative of where we are and why WrestleMania is doing things like walking the plank while creative has gone overboard, where they cannot take simple baby faces and heels and build development characters and build dimensions and layers of these characters to make them good ploys, right? To be good pawns in a chess match of which you create WrestleMania around. Where you create great feuds. You do not have to just make up in like 2 months or in 3 weeks, as some of these are, right? You don't have to go and put together half-ass kind of thing that they've done with WrestleMania this year, with no build-up of any matches leading up to it. Any lead-up of any matches happened at the Rumble. That's as far as we got. And even then, it was so convoluted, it was crazy. But that's what happened. Since March 26, 2001. 2 decades have passed since WCW's doors closed. Just months removed from a catastrophic calendar year and mere days before WWE's most celebrated WrestleMania ever. That was Rock Against Stone Cold, right? Wasn't that the one? The body wasn't cold, the funeral was non-existent, and the wake ended up being the best night out anybody ever had. It's been a minute, and yet because modern wrestling feuds and feasts on anniversaries, retrospectives, and the like, WCW endures as something of a perpetually reanimated corpse. Monday Nitro especially. Why is this? In short, it's capitalism. It's always capitalism. A $1 billion deal with NBC for WWE's archives recently spoke to the success of the network as a 7-year project, and the likes of the New World Order and Eric Bischoff going into the WWE Hall of Fame keeps the Monday Night War conversation simmering between many that weren't even alive or to have lived the original ones. But to paraphrase the Big Boss Man reading a eulogy of a different kind, the old bastard is dead and it ain't coming back. And sadly, Monday Nitro passed long before Shane McMahon pretended he wasn't putting a bullet in it in Panama City, Club La Vila, which I did go one spring break in 1994, and I had a hell of a time. And I still have a sand bucket that I still drink alcohol from which the first drink I had was a Long Island iced tea for $20 at the time. That I don't know how much rum or how much rum they put into it, but man, that was a delicious drink. They put like four lemons in there, and whatever kind of sweet and some sour kind of whatever that stuff is. Fantastic. Not a big Long Island iced tea fan, but it was really good, especially on a hot night like that spring day when I did do that right there on the during the wet t-shirt contest out in the outdoor deck. The closing moments of the last ever Monday Nitro saw it halved on screen with a live edition of Raw simulcasting across TNT USA Network. This was one of the few audacious flexes Vince McMahon actually deserved. Those who know what any of us did in a past life to suffer Shane McMahon on the other side of the half of the divide, you all know this. WWE loved bringing it up. Even though there was once a time they wouldn't even mind their own history with such fondness. And that was the thing. Now, again, even I, at that time, I enjoyed WCW slightly more than WWE. Now, again, with WWE, it was characters. It was developments. It was not the in-ring action. WCW was the in-ring action for me. When I wanted to have the wrestling, which is what WWE does now. But the problem with that is still WWE style. So Daniel Bryan doing what he's doing here, it's not what he did in Ring of Honor. Okay? What AJ Styles is doing is not so much what he was doing in TNA or New Japan or Ring of Honor. Check of all the Ring of Honor stars, Kevin Owens, Cesaro, Sami Zayn, right? They're not doing that. Damian Priest, Keith Lee, Matt Riddle. Think about it. All those guys. My thing was ECW. ECW was a huge fan. Oh. I mean, come on. I took my time to go watch that damn... I would VCR that damn show, or I would watch it live 2 a.m. on a Saturday night. And I caught every pay-per-view. And I loved it. ECW, I was excited about. That was just fun. And I'm going to give a shit what they gave us in the beginning of the mid-card. Like, those are still fun matches to me anyway. And I enjoyed it. If, give me like Danny Doring and Roadblock, or what was the guy's name? Was that what it was? Supernova and Chris, I forget, Chris, I forget. Oh, it's been so long ago. That'll come back to me. Okay, back into the story. Imagine turning into an edition of Superstars of Wrestling Challenge to watch Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage in March 1991 and listen to the commentators or wrestlers themselves talk about Ivan Koloff and Pedro Morales battling over the WWF Championship. The comparative time frame is identical. The difference is how little wrestling used to lean heavily on its past, and the prism of nostalgia can be powerful, regardless of what actually took place. But WWE can't help but live in its nostalgia, because what they're doing now is, as I talked about last week, an aging soap opera. You're seeing all these stars, and again, as I just brought up early on, who's not to argue that maybe Vince and others don't have so much control as to which stars they need to be pushing? The fact that Roman Reigns and Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair and others are the ones that are being pushed in front, or Bobby Lashley, or Drew McIntyre, or others, right? I mean, there's logic behind who is getting pushed, right? Or who is one of the top dogs right now, who are title holders in most cases, right? Yes. I mean, I can at least say that I'm not concerned so much about who's holding the belts right now leading into WrestleMania. I don't have a problem with that. I think, I don't have much of a discussion as to who else deserves the title over somebody. Just talk about the main titles. Roman Reigns absolutely deserves the WWE Championship. Universal title, Bobby Lashley, yes. Long overdue, as a matter of fact. At least I thought so. But again, when he could have got it sooner, he was in another promotion. Like when he was running in Impact Wrestling, and going up against the likes of Eddie Edwards and EC3, that guy should have been over here. If he was going to be in WWE at that time with the character that he has now, he could have very well been champion then. And the fact they never brought back Brock Lesnar to take on Bobby Lashley, which that's, again, the story tells itself. Why don't you do that match? Why don't you pay the man to take a loss? And put Bobby Lashley over, much like Drew McIntyre. It's not a bad idea. I mean, Bobby Lashley is already 40 years old, right? Isn't he already up there? But regardless, Bobby Lashley is like still... I mean, that guy is ripped, chiseled, jacked, and that guy has got a character right now you can run with right now for a while. And you could use him to build other stars, which is what needs to happen with some of these stars. But again, why is Drew McIntyre working with Sheamus and not a younger star? I don't know. Is anybody else working with any younger stars to build them up? There's only one I can think of. Well, there's going to be two. It's the women. Because now, Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair, listen, for Bianca Belair to go in with Sasha Banks, the rub that she will get while working with Sasha Banks in the ring for that SmackDown Women's title will give her a great buzz. We already have the hype of Bianca Belair. There's no doubt she's talented. She's marketable. She's got an amazing look. She is somebody special. And dare I say, much more interesting and talented than the Street Profits. Hey, Montez, sorry. You are no Bianca Belair. I'm sorry. Street Profits don't even have the talent in the tail of Bianca Belair's long hair as Bianca Belair. There's no comparison right now. Now, of course, the booking has not been good for them, okay? Having the Viking Raiders and doing the whole goofy ha-ha stuff has not helped them. Among other things, the way they've been booked coming out of NXT has been bad. Let's just say that. All the ha-ha funny SNL type stuff has been bad for them. It has hurt them a lot. They're a goofy tag team now. But, again, there's one. And now with whatever happened with Charlotte Flair, people can rumor, it's because of Andrade and the whole thing that Andrade got released. I don't think so. Again, and the fact that she has COVID, I think what they said in the ring this Monday where Rhea Ripley, she came in, and now she gets the title shot. Okay. Well, I mean, who else did they have? Young upstart, which, I mean, she's not a young upstart. I mean, Rhea Ripley's been wrestling for a while, even prior to NXT. But again, she's got such a great pedigree of NXT. Can they do the right thing with this young lady and get her in here and instantly make her a star? Again, the rub by Asuka would be huge. So there's stars being possibly made. And again, hopefully, even in a loss, Bianca Belair and or Rhea Ripley will get a rub off of the stars they're working with, because they're working against some really great talent in ring and on mic. No doubt about it. Well, Asuka, yeah, I know, not on mic necessarily, but like the personality, the bravado, like the way she's presented, you know, she's got charisma. Even though she doesn't talk well, she still is a fun promo. That's what I think about it. Now, back into this story. It's so prevalent that some of the wrestling Twitterariat have become confused into thinking that this classes as hashtag storytelling, which itself has been chewed up and sarcastically spat out back out by opposing voices. It's not storytelling because, and this almost shouldn't need saying, but evidently does, a story isn't being told. Again, there are stories that they could have where the story tells itself. You know, the one story that I actually wasn't thinking was too bad that they did last year during Backlash was Edge and Randy Orton. I thought that story was actually pretty good. Pretty damn good. Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, thought it was a pretty good story. Yeah. What about now? No. An image may be revisited, a moment rebadged, or a memory relived, but it's not a story. Not unless it builds on the old, creating something new. This was something Vince Russo clearly felt when he took the creative reins of the struggling Atlanta outfit in 1999. Time for new wrestlers, new stories, and a new WCW. This was good. His version of WCW Nitro was not. And again, it could have taken some time to build back up, but again, Vince Russo, I think, did say it pretty well. He thought he was going to get more than a couple of years to build the ratings up, but he didn't. Who else was going to build WCW back from the monster numbers they had back then, where they were pulling 5.9s or 6s, and they were pulling what, in essence of what, like, 8, 9 million viewers a night, and out beating the competition, Monday Night Raw. Yeah, but at that time, you know, they thought there could be a quick turnaround, that the momentum could be turned back around the other way. But again, you didn't have a compelling story like the NWO to live off of, and the star power that you had from it. But even I thought that some of the things that were going on with WCW wasn't bad. I mean, I thought it was interesting. Now, it was a little bit WWE light. I wish he would have found something else to have done by the time he came over to WCW. But he did try to build young stars. Paul Heyman, as executive producer not too long ago, tried to do the same thing. At least he tried. But again, if you're not going to give the chance, this is what wrestling does. Feels worth clearing up something before we get back into how much of a massive mess this was made. Vince Russo didn't kill with WCW. No. He was trying to band-aid a sinking ship. A ship, remember, and regardless of what people thought, the AOL Time Warner deal that came in, regardless, you know, if the Guy Evans book on WCW Nitro, that book is so good. I got to listen to that again. It's so damn good. You think about the fact that the Turner Broadcasting Company, the Turner offices, the Turner Broadcasting System, what a horribly run company. And the fact they had a rebel like Ted Turner running that outfit and allowing wrestling to be a priority in that company when the rest of the company didn't even want it. But yet, you couldn't keep that up. There was no way to keep that up, right? There was just you can't. That the merger was going to happen. The changes that were being made, no more Harvey Schiller, no more people that were defending at the behest of Ted Turner, number one, and Harvey Schiller, number two, and others that would have defended the wrestling product. Doesn't matter who you have there. If Vince Russo's there or not, they didn't want wrestling. They wanted it out. And the fact of the matter is that WCW was just trying to survive. I mean, if they would have kept the money down, if they wouldn't have overspent like they did, but WCW was just a cash machine. Like, how much money did all these wrestlers make? Listen, some of them, sure. But again, they were getting a whole lot of money sent. And they lost a lot of money as a result. Like, you couldn't hold on to them. It wasn't the right investment for them. It did make sense. Now, 2004's Death of WCW by Brian Alvarez and Rodney Reynolds. I also listened to that book. Pinned plenty on him. Eric Bischoff and many others. Just about every one of the named parties predictably refuted much of the book's content as missing the wider issues at play. And maybe they had a point. Though detailed, Alvarez and Reynolds luxuriated perhaps a little too liberally on some of the truly terrible storylines and angles that permeated Nitro and Thunder in the years leading up to WCW's demise. Yeah, that's probably true. Again, if I had to pick, don't get me wrong, I like the Death of WCW, but I like the Guy Evans book better. The Guy Evans book, like, he did so much on just the interviews of the executives and all the information that guy pulled up. What comprehensive, just good stuff. As the division of a Turner enterprise that was simultaneously crumbling and evolving beyond something anybody, Ted Turner included, could realistically keep a hold of. Again, they were so badly managed, and the accountants could not keep up with what's going on. They were always supposedly cash positive, but really, those guys were losing money hand over foot. And this was being picked up by Time Warner and then AOL. And like, they were going to come in as a company, AOL or Time Warner. They were going to come in, and you knew that WCW was going to get pulled off the books. They were going to let that thing go. And again, I don't think there was going to chance that we were going to be able to get the Fusion Media deal with Eric Bischoff to make that happen. Right? WCW lost loads of money in 2000. And a variety piece on the planned 2001 Fusion Media Company buyout notes it was around $60 million, with other various sources figuring around $10 million either side of that. And again, 2001, 20 years ago, the disastrous 2000 money hemorrhaging shithouse of a year, defined by Vince Russo's division of Nitro. He was in and out of the company over the 12-month period and was at various points on the screen the on-screen authority figure, the real-life head of creative, and even briefly the world heavyweight champion. The sort of chaos that invites ironic analysis in the postscript. Wrestling Twitter's versions of bad movie, right? Bad movie night. 2000 Nitro doesn't blink when you're trying to stare it out. But when you do miss something, it's bad shit cash pilfering television. And again, we talk about WCW 2000 with such a vile thing. And the problem is we're getting a comparison right now to the company we're seeing in front of us. WWE in 2021, and actually 2020, not much farther off from WCW 2000 in the storylines and the way that things are set up. Not much difference. But WWE is in much better financial fiscal shape. And in the words of, in the style of Vince Russo, Michael puts a story, and I swear to God, bro, you won't believe, but this is a shoot, bro. But the night that birthed this era was also the night that that killed WCW's flagship. March 23rd, 2001 was the end. October 18th, 1999 was the point of no return, bro. Right? Moving along. We know the story of Vince Russo coming in and the creative control and all the things we're doing, right? Yes. I'm moving along on the story. It's a very long story, by the way. So the question was Nitro worth your time then? Even for a bit of hate watching in 2021? Perhaps. If you only watch one hour of the eternally boring 1999, make it this one. Foreshadowing how awful the 3-hour Raws would become, the long drawn-out matches and rematches make for dire times when the characters aren't over. WCW lost viewers and AOL Time Warner bosses lost patience, but Nitro resulted in the company's core audience. The one that proved so vital to WWE in the streaming age, losing faith. Russo wasn't a fix. The fix for the fix wasn't a fix. And the promise of a fresh start couldn't fix what was deemed too broken after shambolic telecasts. Cry for the death of WCW 20 years on from its passing if you must. But take care to remember the reasons it happened. Or for that matter, watch them on Peacock. Vince McMahon's already paid for it. Because capitalism, not McMahon, not Russo, not even Jeff Jarrett, will sadly always be king. 20 years ago. The sins, the mistakes of 20 years ago continue today. Doesn't change. I can watch matches and I can watch storylines that go on Monday Night Raw on a regular basis. Not so much SmackDown, but Raw, my God, feels like Nitro. It just feels like Nitro. And there are certain stars that just make me think of stars from back then. It just does. October 1999, they talk about this particular night and how it compares to what happened with the way Raw is now. Very quickly, Bret Hart walking out during a match with Juventud Guerrero and Irvin Courageous. Just out of nowhere. A New York evening gown match was promoted. Oh, boy. Then there was a match where Buff Bagwell went against La Parka, right? Jeff Jarrett arriving that night to smash Buff Bagwell with a guitar. You might remember that. Show long angles featuring Sid deploying lawyers to stop Goldberg. Drunken outsiders pissing about for no purpose in particular. Rick and David Flair not knowing of their elbows from their assholes. Doubled down on the crap product fans had already abandoned in droves. There was title talk. It was a title match with Bret Hart versus Sting. 50-50 by the end, but then the end of the night, by virtue of allies Goldberg and Lex Luger doing battle in the main event. So much crap that happened in 1999 and 2000 WCW. And I hate to say it, but there were some people in the creative right now that knew about what was going on then in those days. Why are they taking ideas from Nitro? Because they're taking ideas similar to kind of like how what Russo would do back then, but doing it way worse. It goes back to when Vince Russo was talking about on his Truth and Consequences, right? His podcast about people living in a bubble. And he's absolutely right. And we're in the same position once again. And I don't know what they're going to do. You know, we've talked about what they can do, right? Again, let's be constructive here, right? Let's be constructive. What they can absolutely do at WrestleMania is, personally, I think, you get Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley over. You absolutely get them over, no doubt about it. They have to get something out of that. As for some of the other matches, there's not much you could do. You know? Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre. Now, listen, here's the other thing, too. We got a lot of good, solid matches that are going to be coming up, okay? What we can't expect are the storylines to be any good with them. Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair will be a very good match. The storyline that has led up to it has been shit. And it's not the fault of Sasha or Bianca. It's the fault of creative. Horrible. Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre. Well, these two have been kind of apart for a while. Because you had to put Miz in the mix to get the belt off of Drew McIntyre because of the Money in the Bank briefcase, because you had to go ahead and make good on that bullshit. So you really did put a tamper on any kind of heat that Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley had. So 3 weeks before the pay-per-view, now we're getting some heat. Pretty late for that, for a main event match on night one. And because of the Miz and the whole title picture and the Money in the Bank stuff, all his stuff going with Bad Bunny was kind of just like an afterthought. Come on. Bad Bunny's one of the biggest recording artists right now in our day. The guy won Grammy Awards. The guy's selling, millions of dollars. Millions of records. right? Listen, one of my most downloaded podcasts this year was me talking about Bad Bunny. I took the whole hour about it, or 45 minutes, something like that. I mean, the novelty of having Bad Bunny in here in the mainstream, I still think it's important. Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan, and Edge. I don't know what you do right here, but I can feel like where Roman Reigns still needs to be holding on to this belt. I mean, the legacy of him, he's the top guy of this company. He has to hold on to the belt. It doesn't make sense to me to see him lose the belt right now. Not at all. I mean, really, I just feel like Daniel Bryan and Edge are being brought in because that's the level, they make up the level of opponent that a Roman Reigns should be having at WrestleMania. But he doesn't because the company doesn't have anyone. They have to use 2 part-timers to build to the level of a star to take on Roman Reigns in their top main event match at WrestleMania 37. That's what they did. And that is not putting down Daniel Bryan or Edge. Because Daniel Bryan and Edge, they're not in their prime. Again, they're 2 Hall of Famers. Daniel Bryan would have been called a Hall of Famer. Edge is. But again, we're talking about 2 near 40-year-olds. And Roman Reigns right now in the peak in his prime. Right now. And Roman Reigns, for my dollar, he is the most marketable star. He is the guy that will bring asses to the seats. He is the box office draw. Right now. That's him. And this character right now with Paul Heyman, it's amazing. It's awesome. And I think what you do here is, I mean, you could put Edge and Bryan together, or you could split them off into their own feud, or you could have Jey Uso, and you could tag team these 2, or they might just do that. Uso and Reigns versus Edge and Bryan, something like that. They might put them together because they like putting tag team matches against stars who are going to take on each other for whatever reason, which is the other reason I didn't get the tag teaming of Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks against the tag team champions, which, by the way, those tag team titles mean nothing. Just don't. Again, when Reginald is the most intriguing thing of the 2, that's it. Okay? I could care less what Nia Jax or Shayna Baszler or Lana do in the ring. They're more entertaining on TikTok than they are in the ring. And that's not against them. It's because of the creative they're given. The creative is shit. All of it. So we're getting another incarnation of The Fiend. It's not going to help. But what else can you do with The Fiend? I mean, he's not going to be Undertaker. He's not even going to be Kane. I don't even know what this is going to be. But The Fiend has not worked. All the effort they're putting into this is getting worse. Can we just make The Fiend Bray Wyatt again? Can we just stop this? Stop the nightmare that is The Fiend. Not because it's a nightmare, because it's a nightmare to watch this creative go so far south with this guy. It's ridiculous. And of course, you're going to give Randy Orton a match. I mean, what else are you going to do? Randy Orton is not putting over younger guys. Why not? Does he not want to? I guess. But why is Randy Orton not being... why can't he be the guy that is trying to get some of the younger stars over? That will give him a chance. They won't. I mean, they did try to do a little bit of that with Keith Lee and whatnot, but really, no. Because they were never... I mean, Randy Orton did give a win to Keith Lee, but again, the way that Keith Lee was handled after that was so horrible anyway. It doesn't make a difference. And then you look at, okay, New Day, AJ Styles and Omos could almost be something. I don't know. But they kept AJ Styles out there, and we're going to see almost an actual tag in actual action. It's a big guy. What can we do with him? What else do we have? Big E's got to go and defend the IC title. U.S. title's got to get defended. And, we're going to have other title matches. What else? What other feuds are we going to have? They're going to be built up. But again, we already have 8 matches. Probably going to have, what? Another 4 or 6 left to go ahead and book? You're not going to build any big matches after that. This is it. This is WrestleMania 37 over 2 nights. The only spectacle that there is that it's, again, a 2-night event. Now, are any of these matches going to be cinematic? That's a question. That would help. But we're not getting it. At least I don't think so. Because remember, we had the cinematic matches that really did stand out. Well, The Fiend and Randy Orton, will that be a cinematic match? It has to be. Like, no doubt, it has to be. They can't just give us another match. Can't do it. So that's going to be a cinematic match. Then what else you got? Braun Strowman and Shane McMahon. Braun Strowman, the current Big Show, a worse version of Big Show. It's funny where Great Khali is coming into the Hall of Fame now, and Braun Strowman is not much of a bigger guy, not much of a difference in a bigger guy than he is. I mean, Braun Strowman right now is at Great Khali status, and it sucks. But you know why? Who thought it was a good idea to let Braun Strowman talk? And if you let him talk, why did you script him? Do you understand how bad he sounds trying to script himself? Do you understand how bad it is? Now he gets the Shane McMahon match. Doesn't mean a whole lot. Like, who has benefited from working with Shane McMahon? Miz? Kevin Owens? No. Nobody benefits from working with Shane McMahon in a WrestleMania match. You're just getting a spot on the card, kid. That's it. Basics. I mean, really, I think if it's even possible, WWE needs to go back to wrestling basics. Strip out all this crap you're doing, all this, makeshift, do the same thing we always do. No. With some of the storylines you have, with some of the stars that you have, take the stories that have been there. Don't think you need to go and recreate the wheel once again. You're not going to. You're not going to reinvent it. Sometimes you take the storylines that are already there, and the story tells itself. I mean, could we have a time where we can get Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens together again, talk about their time as partners, and they've split apart and they've broken up again? Sure, you could do that. Cesaro, Seth Rollins. Can we use anything about them going back to Ring of Honor? Anything about their past? And not this bullshit we're doing right now with Embrace Division? Because we know we're going to get that match. Can we use something of their past? The story tells itself. And what else do you have? I mean, we could go ahead and say, let's get Lana and Naomi back out there to go ahead and win the tag team titles off of Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax, I guess. I don't know. I don't get where Carmella's been taking the back seat after all the build they had for that character. Right? No Bayley anywhere in WrestleMania. Why is that? It's just certain things I don't get. Again, we know that Keith Lee's been away. Riddle's going to have to defend the U.S. title. Okay. Probably have that. And then you have other stars that are just like, you've put so much time into, and they're nothing. Elias is nothing. Baron Corbin is nothing. And you spent so much time on these guys. For the fact you spent so much time putting them on TV and doing things with them, why haven't you done something with them now? Because you put so much vested interest in them. You don't have any fans to boo you out of the building. You're not going to get your ratings any less. Why don't you keep going with the characters you were doing, right? The King Corbin character, Elias, why don't you just keep trying to just put him down our throats? You're already doing it. If you feel like you have a direction with it and maybe there'll be a payoff sometime, do it. Why not? But they won't. They don't want to. So, yeah. That's what they got. It pains me to see all this going on here. But again, WrestleMania, if you're going to do something with this, if you're going to make something of this show, you have to at least build some stars. Last year, Drew McIntyre absolutely got built into a star. No question about it. That was one. And that's what you got to keep doing, right? Bobby Lashley, you establish him as a top champion. You let him get that win at WrestleMania. I don't think he beats Drew McIntyre. You make Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley bona fide stars. Give them their WrestleMania moments. Something. Make it happen. Roman Reigns, top star as a heel. Hold on to the belt once again. There's a couple of wins right there. At least you can do that. And for Big E, give him a match against, if it's going to be Apollo Crews or somebody else, give Big E a match where he can shine. You know, maybe you just do maybe you do a triple threat, or you do something else where you put a multiple man match and give Big E the chance to go ahead and shine in a great match and win and just be unstoppable, and let him become the star he is outside of New Day and become this new established big star ready for main event against Roman Reigns. That's what you do. At the least, you make sure the stars that need to get over to make them stars, you do that. And then what do you do throughout the offseason? You build on those stars. You build on Bobby Lashley continuing to be strong. And who are you going to get to go and go up against him? You build off of Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley. You build off of Big E. You build off of Riddle in the same case. I don't know what you can do with them, but again, you build them up. You make them important. Somehow, some way. And then you start building a nucleus of stars you can start creating some storylines out of. Because you make them strong. You don't make them win and lose, parody booking. You stop that shit. Stop it altogether. That's enough. Make it happen. What's also interesting as well coming up to WrestleMania is, I want to get into some other stories real quick, is the fact that this will be the one time we're going to get to see a crowd. Because then what happens is, after WrestleMania, the crowds will not be coming back. They will do the show at Raymond James Stadium over 2 nights. But then, when they go back, no house shows yet. We're not getting back to live crowds yet. Nope. They will go back into doing shows with the Thunderdome after WrestleMania. As they will be moving from Tropicana Field, they will stay in Tampa. They will go to the Yuengling Center, formerly the USF, University of South Florida Sun Dome, an older building, but it will hold Monday Night Raw beginning April 12th. No word as to how long they're going to be there, but again, they will continue to have the virtual screens, the Zoom calls, so everybody can go in and virtually watch the show. That's it. But they will not have anything going on when it comes to fans. So that's still going to be not available. And that's too bad. But hey, that's what they're going to plan to do. What are you going to do about that? A little bit of a couple of things I want to just run in through to talk about. Didn't get a chance to talk about. Impact Wrestling getting its lowest end of the ratings, and I've got to look at their ratings all this year. They've ranged for as low as 116,000, which is the lowest they've had this year, and they've gotten as much as almost 200,000 viewers. But it really just fluctuates all the way through. And it doesn't make much of a difference if Kenny Omega's on, or if somebody else, or if the or Finn Juice is out there, or what else they do. It hasn't made much of a dent yet. And I think what's happened also since Hard to Kill, I'm not sure if it's just something where that the ratings haven't been as high, because there's been a bit of a drop-off since. And there was a bit of a drop-off since the AEW inclusion of Kenny Omega in the storylines. Maybe it'll be different coming up, because Kenny Omega has now come out this past week. And again, I didn't get much of an announcement, I guess. I don't think there was much of a promotion about it. But oh well. Not much of a difference. It's just kind of there. So there's that to go and talk about. A couple other things they're going to bring up that are coming up. And one story I didn't get a chance to talk about was NWA, which had their Back to the Attack show. And I did not get a chance to watch the show itself. And I haven't had a chance to watch Power supposedly be coming back. So I got to go and look at that real quick. But either which way, they had 6 matches of the night. Slice Boogie beating Crimson Jack Dane and Jordan Clearwater. Tyrus over J.R. Kratos. Elijah Burke or The Pope over Tom Latimer to retain the NWA World TV title. Camille defeated Thunder Rosa in a number 1 contenders match for the NWA Women's World Women's Championship. Trevor Murdoch over Chris Adonis for the NWA National title. And Nick Aldis defeated Aaron Stevens in 21 minutes to retain the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship, a.k.a. Sweet Charlotte, the 10 pounds of gold. So there's that. And also looks like that Taryn Terrell came out of retirement and made debut on commentary. And looks like she might be going after the world title, the women's world title, and go after Serena Deeb. We'll see about that. One other show coming up now this weekend, which I'm going to try to go and catch myself watching it live, is coming up this Friday as I record. So it'll be tomorrow as this comes out. It'll be the Ring of Honor 19th anniversary show. Could we see Andrade make an appearance? Because Andrade is under no non-compete. And he could go ahead and join the likes of Roosh and Dragon Lee and others in Ring of Honor, which would be nice. And then go back to CMLL and make some kind of relationship with that. Just a thought. But anyway, they have a full slate of matches. 4-corner survival match. Danhausen, who I did not care about in the last pay-per-view, versus Eli Isom versus Leon St. Giovanni versus Brian Johnson. Dalton Castle versus Josh Woods. Mark Briscoe versus Flip Gordon. Unsanctioned match. Matt Taven versus Vincent. Shane Taylor Promotions, that's the 6-man tag team of Shane Taylor, Moses, and Kaun versus MexiSquad, Bandido, Flamita, and Rey Horus. Ring of Honor World TV title, Dragon Lane remains champion if King wins. Kenny King versus Tracy Williams. EC3 versus Jay Briscoe. Ring of Honor Tag Team titles, the champions, La Faccion Ingobernable. Kenny Kingston and La Bestia, The Ring versus The Foundations. Tracy Williams and Rhett Titus. Jonathan Gresham versus Dak Draper for the Ring of Honor Pure Championship. And for the Ring of Honor World title, Roosh versus Jay Lethal. So if I'm going to pick any predictions here, I'll pick Roosh to retain the world title, Jonathan Gresham to retain the Pure title. Foundation will win the Ring of Honor tag team titles. I think EC3 beats Jay Briscoe. I think Kenny King will beat Tracy Williams. And Dragon Lee will remain champion, remain TV champion. I'll say Shane Taylor Promotions beats the MexiSquad. I'll say Vincent beats Matt Taven. I'll say Flip Woods beats Mark Briscoe. And I'll take Dalton Castle over Josh Woods. And I'll take Eli Isom to win the 4-corner survival match. There you go. So, in conclusion of tonight's program, again, never forget, March 26th, 2001. Now, of course, the Nitro was March 23rd, but March 26th was the day that WCW died. And here we are. And it's a day that, as a wrestling fan, changed a lot. And what I've actually really wanted overall in all this time is for competition to come back to take on WWE. Because do you really want to fix the problem that WWE has? They're not going to fix it by themselves. And it never has been that way. What has always motivated WWE to change with the times or to change the way they always do things. The same old, same old. What they have to do is we have to expect AEW to build up. We have to expect matches like Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa to build up headlines, for the Pinnacle and Inner Circle to be a big deal, for Kenny Omega to be this monster prick of a heel with Don Callis as the invisible hand. We have to have all that work out with AEW. We didn't Impact Wrestling to get some buzz off of AEW, which it's gotten some, but not enough. And Impact Wrestling needs to work on themselves. And so does Ring of Honor. And so does NWA. And again, when the crowds start coming back and the independent circles coming back, it's going to make a difference. And WWE, for their credit, they need to go and figure that out. But what they can do, since they cannot fix their creative because it's a broken system, okay, they will fix the system when they have to. When there's no choice. When it's probably too late, almost too late, and then they'll turn it around. That's what's going to happen. But more than anything else, we need one of these companies to be another WCW. If AEW has that chance, then let it be. They have a better chance than TNA ever did. What was it, 9 years ago? 8 years ago? They have a better chance of making this happen. So we got to hope for that. And remember, for the casual, loyal WWE fans, you should want AEW to succeed. I know you don't think this, but you want them to succeed because it will force the hand of Vince McMahon to push WWE to a new era away from what we're in right now. Because then they will come out of the Thunderdome era and they will make something better. And then we will have the turnaround that we all want as wrestling fans. because you will force the giant of professional wrestling, of sports entertainment, to change and create a sea change. Chart a new course going all pirate here, arg, towards a new promised land, towards a new audience. It will happen. And that is what the course that I'm going to take on this Wrestling is Real podcast going forward. That's what I expect. That's what I predict. That's what I think will happen. And I will be there on this microphone waiting for it to happen. Until next week, we'll talk. By the way, I'll see about doing a 19th anniversary podcast, a post show about it. I don't know if I'm going to get the catch or not. I think I will, but I'll just give you the heads up on that. And after that, we'll see what they're going to keep doing with WrestleMania and the build-up for it. We'll leave it there. Come back for another Wrestling is Real podcast because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.